Welcome back to my Sports Recap of the Week. This is episode 47, and in case you have noticed, I am actually in one of two of my workplaces. Um, I wanted to, since I have time to do in between, actually I have plenty of time because there's really not much going on. I decided to take this time to do the recap. And again, I should have done this on Sunday or Monday, but that's kind of an elephant in the room that I wanted to talk about before we get started. So, simply put it, I'm gonna be blatant honest with you that I'm kinda losing it. I just haven't been motivated to do weekly recaps anymore, at the very least, because each time I watch the game, it's one thing. I still love watching the game. That's not going to change. I'm always motivated to watch the game if but over time, I started to realize, working on a weekly recaps. Not only got to look at the games from early in the week, but you have to look at the games at the end of the weekend. Over time, I start to remember more of later in the week because it's a recent memory. And if the recent memory is what taught you something, a recent memory is where you have the most memory, and you have the more knowledge. And in the early ones, the ones that early in the week, and I'm going to put this as an example. If I'm watching, let's say, the Marlins play against, I don't know, the Nationals, right? And that happened on Monday, July 4th, which was true. And they won the game in extra innings, which was also true. I wouldn't remember as much of the full details. I wouldn't even remember a freaking ejection. That's the sad thing. I would not remember if there was an ejection. But I would remember an ejection later in the week and again, this didn't happen. If it did happen, I would have had the recap on it. But it's an example. I'm recapping that game, but I'm also recapping the day prior, which an example here is Sandy Alcantara's complete game, which I would have remembered that most because that's the game I recently watched. That's an example. Another example I can think of, if Tyler Hero produced 40 points on Saturday, and I remember that because I was later in the week, but I would have forgot that Jimmy Butler would have 45 points on Tuesday. I'm like, oh shit, and then he had 45 points. Shit, I didn't realize. You know what I mean? It's kind of sad. So I feel like that motivation started to dwindle in the month of October. Something's gone wrong in October, and I just didn't have that quite of the motivation like I used to. So it's really sad. I really enjoyed doing live sports recap of the week, but I just haven't been doing motivation to do so. And standing up for the video is actually really annoying. I used to do that a lot, but there are times where I just sat down and look at it. But I think look at it through my iPad and record this through my phone is something that's really tough to do. So I'm thinking, what if I had the background of the sports and my notes? So I'm trying to think of ideas to keep myself motivated. So this is my idea. I'm thinking of not abandoning, but concluding my sports recap of the week up to episode 50. It wouldn't make sense to stop at 47 when there's half a century, half the number left. So I figured I'll stop. I'm probably going to stop at episode 50, and then what I'm going to do is on the new year or after the football season, I'm going to do it daily. So this is what I'm proposing. And this is some early ideas. So I might change there could be a change of mind. And plus, I still have no idea what I fully want to do in Miami TVG. There's so many ideas I want to do. I want to do football content, but then I realized I would need to have the red zone, which I do have the red zone. But what happens if I don't have the red zone? I need to have that kind of knowledge at the same time, especially in the early afternoon games. The early afternoon games, 1 o'clock Eastern time, is where you have the most games because most of the teams are in the East Coast. Plain and simple. It's really hard to keep up with all that. So I'm just like, I don't know. It's a little bit difficult to do the NFL, but people do it. People can do it. But the XFL and the USFL, or even the CFL, is tolerable too. I don't know. That's one of my ideas. That's just one of my ideas. But one of the ideas I have now is, what if I do recaps daily? And I'm not talking about like building up. I'm talking about a recap on certain games and then recap at the end of the day. Like, for example, Miami Heat and Florida Panthers play at the same time. I recap it after both of those games. That way, I will save myself the burden of doing it weekly because there's a lot of games, and I realize it too. I realize that too, with all those games that were building up. I realized some of the videos that I did, they were up. Most of those videos, they were up close to an hour long videos, and that was I thought about it at that time. That was like really good, but then thinking about it now, it did not work. I don't think it worked at all, and it's really sad because I used to enjoy doing that, and I don't know. I realize now that it's not working, and besides what I told you earlier, that I wouldn't remember what happened earlier in that week. So I think this could work. And it's also tough to do when you're not in Miami because you have to do some bullshit to watch some of the games. But yeah, that's where I am right now. So that's what I'm proposing. The conclusion, Miami Sports Recap of the Week at episode 50. And we go on to try and do daily recaps. I don't know. We'll see what happens. That's what I'm proposing. I think I'll be good at it. Get that out of the way, go on the rest of the night. Who knows? I think that could work, especially if you don't want to make the burden to watch long videos, to say the least. Okay, I apologize for that very, very long explanation and recap. Not recap, but intro. Let's actually recap. And we're going to start off what I think would be I was contemplating, but then I realized, yeah, this is obvious. Loser of the week, I would call it. And that's the Miami Hurricanes football team, which they have lost this game 16-42 against the Pittsburgh Panthers. And because of this loss, we are ineligible to have a bowl game. So we are done. We are done for this season. And you know what? As much as it's frustrating to have this season the way it did, I'd say good riddance. I say good riddance. The season is over because this has been. I call this a transition year. The recruitment is still very good. In fact, we recently had a decommitment, and another one has committed to Miami instead of Michigan. We'll talk about that next week. So. If I had the opportunity, I would have done the commitment news right away. But but yeah, this game was 42-16. We are ineligible to have a bowl game. Season is over, and the Miami Hurricanes football team, the final record of 2022 season is 5-7, and we are 3-5 in the conference in the ACC. So. Not a good record at all. So, a bust season. But I think as we move forward with those really good commitments we had for the class of 2023, I think we're gonna have a really good structural year. But like now with all those recruitments in the last previous coach, Manny Diaz, I think they're gonna be gone. I think some of them are going to end up in a transfer portal. In fact, one of them is actually in a transfer portal. And a couple others are probably going to try to go for the draft. So, yeah, this is Cristobal's time. This is Mario Cristobal's time. But also, I'm still calling for firings of Josh Gaddis and Kevin Steele. I think they are not good coordinators. I think they should have done better against good teams. We were expected to have a 10-2 record or a 9-3 record, but our final record was actually 5-7. So we are much lower expectations, much lower standings than what our expectation was. So this was a disaster of the year. All right, this is gonna be a hard topic to talk about. That's the Florida Panthers. It started off great, but then things kind of went downhill from that point on. Actually, this is a new week. We talked about last week that I didn't do the recap. With this game, we actually beaten Boston Bruins 5-2 with Sam Reinhart with the power play, with Charlie McAvoy with another power play goal. So they tied up in the first period. And in the second period, it's been all Florida Panthers, with Anton Lundell scoring his second goal of the year, Alexander Barkov with his power play goal, and Matthew Tkachuk with another power play goal. So power play goals are improving. We had 3 power play goals for the Florida Panthers. And with that, we have 4-1 lead. In the third period, David Pastrnak to have his power play goal, 4-2 Florida. And then Aaron Ekblad with the empty netter to conclude this game 5-2 against Boston. This was a really good victory, and I was really considering put them as winner of the week if they haven't blew a 4-1 lead against St. Louis. Yep, that's what happened. They had blew it and they lost it in overtime against St. Louis 5-4. This is a painful game to watch, and this was a really painful. This is as painful as it gets to even talk about this game. So let's see. Aaron Ekblad 1-0. Radko Gudas with the one-timer 2-0, and then Carter Verhaeghe 3-0. And we had St. Louis. We had them. We were dominating against St. Louis. Dominating. And then, Brandon Saad to get that goal for St. Louis to make it 1-3 in the first period, and Anton Lundell in the second period to make it 4-1, and it was a shorthanded goal. I think that was our first shorthanded goal of the season for the Florida Panthers. Sorry, and keep in mind Alexander Barkov is not playing this game, and we're gonna talk about that next week. And I keep saying next week because it is true. I'm not finishing my Sports recap of the week until episode 50. So things are going really well defensively and offensively for the Florida Panthers. It looked like they had that remnants of the old Florida Panthers that we were promised from last season when Andrew Burnett was coaching after John Quizville was resigned because of the allegations against him. It has proven to have that work under Paul. Well, I thought it was proved really well for Paul Maurice, and then the third period happened. We were about 12 minutes away of winning the game, and then Florida Panthers did this. They had no Spencer Knight. I think it was Spencer Knight who was goalie that night. Yeah, it was. Yeah, so the person who was, it was Spencer Knight. It was Bobrovsky. Yeah, Spencer Knight was goalie. Knight had no support whatsoever for defensively, because in the third period, 3 goals happened to tie the game. Ryan O'Reilly, Jordan Kyrou, and Vladimir Tarasenko tied the game. And in overtime, just 1 minute in the overtime, Jordan Kyrou to put the game away. And we have lost this game 5-4. This was a painful game. This was a really frustrating resort that we could have had this victory easily. And the frustrations of the Florida Panthers fans just continue, like myself too, has continued. There is no consistency. There's no consistency. There is no consistency in regards to defensively and support for the goaltenders. There is none. The other two games that happened this week, I'm going to talk about that next week. Excuse me. We have breaking news from with all those transfer rumors for Lionel Messi. They still have yet to be confirmed with Lionel Messi, and the agent kind of confirmed that there's no decision yet regards to Lionel Messi. But in between, we have a breaking news. We have a signing from the academy midfielder Benjamin Kramashi. He is Inter Miami academy player, and the season and he has signed a deal through 2025 season with the team option for 2026 and 2027. He is a Key Biscayne native, which means he is from the Miami area. He's from there. He's a home ground player. A home ground player is basically when you sign a team that is your local team. So, like for example, like this guy, he is from the Miami area. Key Biscayne is a little small island off the Miami downtown, and it's really nice. It's really beautiful. I've seen it. It is beautiful. Basically, if you're from the area that is a local of a major sports market, and you sign with your local team, that is a home ground player. So, like if I were to sign with the Dolphins, I would have been a home ground player. Or my friend Jordan would sign with a team like the Orlando Magic. That's also a home ground player because he lives there and he is from there. So that's an example. So that's the breaking news. Basketball, Miami Hurricanes basketball. Unlike the Miami Hurricanes football team where they're struggling to win the game, this team, however, they can win a game. They can win games. What happened on Sunday was unfortunate. They have lost to Maryland on the championship, on the Hall of Fame tip-off, that game is no big deal anyway. If it's a national championship, then that's definitely heartbreak to even, swallow. But this basketball team knows how to win. They know how to win a game. They have proved that against St. Francis Brooklyn Terriers, who, granted, they're not a good team. I think I might have seen that team play. I'm not sure. I don't think so. But we have won this game 79-56. And yeah, that is a good victory for that. It's a pretty okay victory. Again, it's one of those low caliber teams to play against, the teams that you're really not familiar with. However, the big note of the caliber teams is even when we're on the winning streak, we still play against a good team. And oh boy, this is not only a rivalry game, a state rivalry game, but this team is also pretty good. They started the year 5-1, just like Miami started 5-1. Battle of Florida up in Orlando, where we play against UCF Knights. And we have won this game 66-64. This was a close game, but at the end of it all came down to the and ones, the 3-pointers, and defense from the Miami Hurricanes near the end of the game. But something weird happened in that game. There was a tip from the free throw. I'm not sure who the UCF player was, but he bounced the rim off to try to get that rebound just so they can try to tie the game from the actual layup. But what happened was the ball was actually tipped out of bounds, but the clock never ran. So they were trying to look at how much time was used from the referee's watch and decision. So we were thinking there's 0.4 seconds or 4/10 of a second left or 3/10 of a second left. But in actuality, that was it. The clock would have ran out anyway. And because of that, we have won this game. This is a huge victory. Huge victory. And, Florida bragging rights, that's one thing. With football, there's really nothing to be proud about at this moment. But for basketball, absolutely. The Miami Heat is not the only ones who are good. The Miami Hurricanes are also good ones. So, the Magic and UCF Knights, they're going to have a better bragging rights. But this proves something. But neutral standpoint, this was a good game. This was a great game to watch, and I'm proud of how we accomplished this game against UCF. And, a state rivalry, it's always fun to watch. I can't say the same for JTV. I don't know. I have no idea. But at the same time, there was a huge victory, which is unrelated to Miami. Alabama has beat North Carolina in 4 overtimes. Anyway, regarding the Hurricanes, we're playing tonight, because today's Wednesday, against Big Ten team, Rutgers University, which is a New Jersey school. Next, I was really contemplating on this because I was thinking of putting them as a winner of the week or this as a winner of the week, and ultimately I made my decision, and I'll talk about why. Dolphins, we have won this game pretty good too against the Houston Texans, not the Miami Dolphins. I root for them. We have won this game 30-15 after leading 30-0, because in this game Tua is him and the defense are good. First half, we have produced 3 touchdowns and 3 field goals that would add up to 30 points. So with the touchdowns, Drew Smythe with the 4-yard pass after a runoff, that's 10-3 because earlier was a field goal. Jeff Wilson Jr. 17-0, and after that, Xavier Howard with the scoop and score. It's 27-0, and other points were scored by field goals. There was a scary moment when Tua was bent backwards, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I'm gasping. I'm like inhaling pretty sharply, but thankfully he's okay. He was able to continue on for a little bit, but he kept getting sacked, and I was getting so worried. I was getting really worried about him, and I'm really screaming for Mike McDaniel to get Tua off the field and then put Skylar Thompson or Teddy Bridgewater in, and they did do so. But there is a problem. Skylar Thompson needs to improve. He needs some quarterback development, and I don't think he's getting it on his rookie year because he is getting destroyed. But regarding the scare, 2 touchdowns were scored by Houston by Derek Ogunbowale, who is a running back, to make it 6-30, and they tried to have a 2-point conversion, but they did not make it. And then early in the fourth quarter, Jordan Atkins, 25-yard pass from Kyle Allen to make it 12-30, but again, 2-point conversion has failed to put. And then Kaimi Fairbairn to make it 15-30, and that's really the final score. But ultimately, it comes down to defense, and they need to help Skylar Thompson, and thank goodness they did. A few Dolphins fans say put Tua back in. I'm saying no, don't put him back in because I knew we were going to win the game. I wasn't even stressed about it. Honestly, God, I don't care that they were coming back. Bottom line is, time was running out. We had a good, comfortable lead. I was not worried. As long as our quarterback is safe, that's all I'm good about. I care about, because this December we have really tough games. We start that tough game stretch against the 49ers on the road. And then after that, we got the Los Angeles Chargers, who, by the way, I might as well tell you now that we have the game has been flexed to Sunday Night Football. So it's Tua Tagovailoa versus Justin Herbert in Los Angeles. After that, we have another primetime game against the Buffalo Bills, undeciding if it was going to be a Saturday game or a Sunday Night Football game, which I'm good with whatever. Personally, I would enjoy Sunday night. And then we have a Christmas matchup against Green Bay Packers. So that's 3 primetime games in a row. And for Miami and a good market, not huge, but a good market, that's very impressive. That is really impressive. And then next we got New England, and then we finish off against the Jets. These games are so important to us. If there's these games that we need to win, it's these ones. We gotta prove that we are real deal. Marlins are still trying to look for the Miami Marlins are still trying to look for a center fielder. I personally think they should look for a closer too. They have to look for both. And they were looking at some first baseman too. They were looking at Jose Abreu, which ultimately he signed with freaking Houston Astros, and he said, like, I'm tired of the cold, I want to play in the warm weather. I'm like, come on, come to Miami. Anyway, I have made a decision to make Miami Heat the winner of the week. And, this week we are 3-1, and we got a couple games this week against Boston. And only 2 games this week, and that's both for Boston and Massachusetts. But 4 games this week. We have lost to Minnesota Timberwolves in Minneapolis, and of course, the curse against Minnesota continues. We just can't beat them. But the acknowledged part is we have a third quarter problem. We have a really bad third quarter problem, and that needs to be addressed quickly. This was a close game, in regards to not having players like Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, and Duncan Robinson, and Gabe Vincent. So there was some injury bug that's happened, but it ultimately gets worse. For the injury bug. Actually not. Actually no. Bam Adebayo is actually still playing, but I don't think Robinson was back in the next game. No, he was not. Never mind. So, but Tyler Hero was, who has came back with 17 points. Kyle Lowry with 28 points, and Bam Adebayo with 15 points. And this is a game now against Washington. This is when we start winning games against Washington. We have won this game 113-105. And again, the third quarter fever just continues. It's frustrating to even look at. Third quarter, we always have a good advantage in the first half, and in the third quarter we have collapsed in the worst way, and we actually blew it. But in the fourth quarter, we have an ability to push our way back up, and ultimately we have won the game. And this was a good game to watch, but a really frustrating thing that it keeps happening. Keeps happening. But Kyle Lowry putting the game on his shoulders with 28 points in this one. That is a good one. Then the next game was an even closer one when we play against the Wizards again. This score was now 107-110 final score. Kuzma and Bradley Beal were like heat killers. But the biggest note here in this game was Bam Adebayo scoring 38 points against Washington. 38. My gosh. 38 points against Washington. And keep in mind, Bam Adebayo in this position is a center. Who scores that many points these days as a center? That's crazy. That is a crazy thing. And Caleb Martin doing the things too. And speaking of Caleb Martin, he did great things in this game. As this game, I would expect the Heat to actually lose this game because it was against Atlanta. But we actually won in Atlanta, Georgia. Caleb Martin scores 20 points. Bam Adebayo with 32 points in this one. As Max Strus also scoring 16 points. By the way, for wondering, for Trae Young and Collins, they both each scored 22 and 23 points. This was considering the way how we're playing this year. This was a sweet victory against Atlanta on the road too. And you know, the Miami and Atlanta rivalry is continuing to build up, and not for all sports. And it ain't just, you know, basketball, baseball. It's building up pretty good, and also soccer too. And football, not so much. They're in different leagues. One's in the AFC, and the other one's in the NFC. But I have seen them both play, and I would give anything to, you know, get that win. So, but yeah, that's where the recap ends. Weekly recap. That's where it ends here. I hope I get that motivation back. I doubt it, but yeah. I'm sorry for the long intro, but I'm not sorry for the recap. So that's gonna do it for this video, folks. If you have liked this video, please hit that like button, subscribe for more content, because Miami TVG has it back, and when he does, he'll be right there with you for the entertainment you deserve. Thank you guys so much for supporting my sports recap of the week. It's been an honor. It's been great. High Heat in the 305 was also great, but ultimately I just couldn't keep up, keeping up that knowledge anymore. So I think I'm gonna do the the post game review or something on a daily basis. Who knows? Anyway, folks, that's gonna do it, and I'll see you guys next week. Good night, everybody.